afro. As,
That's good, bro. We all aspire to something.
hey,
Don't we?
as I'm pretty sure you were playing that game when we beat these guys over at Avondale. When we played Whitetech.
Man,
Cams was playing that game. Me and
bring
you
him
the
up.
same team.
man, I can't.
Well, you
I
know,
can't remember
it was such an easy game.
such a long time ago, man. And always competing against Waitakere, man. It was always a competitive game.
You don't have to be diplomatic, bro. You're not. I'm not Biden. You're not Trump. You're not trying. There's no PC stuff here, brother. Just tell the truth, man. We carved them up.
I'm just conscious of the head honcho, given that he's from Waitakere, bro, and all the podcast listeners. So just got to be diplomatic.
So what team was that?
Basketball team.
The custom one?
Yeah. Played custom. Played a few games that when we turned up. We had a cool team. We had a really, our team. They were cool guys in it. It was me, you. No, we did, man. We had some pretty cool dudes. Me, you, Lucy.
We all had personalities.
Yeah, that's it.
And I think that was quite unique.
Yeah.
At that era, because we didn't have a lot of money. Food was that was scarce. But one thing that we did have was some personalities and a bit of fun. So when we did turn up, we turned up, I think, for each other.
Yeah.
Because we'd all come from similar backgrounds.
Yeah.
So it was good fun, good memories.
Because you all went there, St. Forma,
Yeah. So I went.
and straight into the
We went.
A's.
Nah, well, we went, and then we had the trial. Like, we just didn't turn up. That's when me, George, those were our kind of first introduction to like organised. Boy, I remember Mr. Gray running us through drills, man. I remember making that. Okay, you guys come for this. And it was me, Joe Tuafale, and all those guys. And he's going, yeah, you run this move and that. And mate, I thought he was talking algebra or something. That's what I thought, So me and George, you remember my mate George?
Yeah, bro.
And then, so we thought, nah, we just go with all the other smokers and drinkers in the team. And that was our senior A team.
Well, I think that was always kind of the status quo with us at that level. Was just you turn up and your natural skill set would take you through. Fundamentally, each person brought a different dynamic
exactly.
to those teams, and that contributed to success. And then as you got up and you became a bit more serious, and I suppose the structure, as you say, became a bit more organised, then that's when you kind of thought, shucks, this is a bit too serious.
Yeah.
Well, particularly in terms of basketball, and I was just like,
Yeah.
nah, that's structured stuff, man. That's too academic for me, man. I'm out of there.
A lot of those boys had been in that system too. There was Eric Pepe and all that. Willie Barisic and that. They'd been in that in the previous team the year before. But I just remember the fun that we had. And our team, we had last year Trip and our team, and he's the first guy I could see who were full dreads, falling all over the place playing basketball and that. So we had some really cool cats, John Ali.
It's interesting, because you sort of talk about memories, and I suppose schools, we don't know it at the time, but they're probably one of the best memories that you have, and you can talk quite vividly about those times because they were so good. And even now, in terms of the friendships that you build beyond school. So I've been grateful. I was always grateful to be attending Kelston and to meet the people that are there. And even to this day, it's just like, man, a lot of people know me as through Kelston.
Yeah.
And if you're out in a public setting, when you hear it's just like, okay, this has got to be one of the boys. Funny story, when I finished with Kelston, I went to Waikato University, and I was in a nightclub, and I was looking at the dance floor. Club was about to close, and then I looked on the dance floor, and all you could see is this big afro right in the middle, and I was just going, man, that looks cool. Anyway, the afro was sort of coming out from the dance floor towards where I was, which was near the exit, and it was August. One of the boys, I thought, man, what are you doing down here? And he was doing computer science at the time. And it was good, man. I tell you, it was really, really good, because at the time there weren't a lot of Polynesians down in Hamilton in 97. And it was, even though it was an hour's drive, 20 minutes drive, it was a massive cultural shift to go from predominantly a Polynesian environment setting to down there, which was probably more predominantly Māori on that. So that was quite interesting. But yeah, when I caught up with August down there, I don't know what he's got up to. So if you're listening, August, drop us a comment, mate, on what you're doing now.
Because I went down to we had a soul, so the the university students. So we had a soul down. It was down in Hamilton, down Waikato. I'm sure, 97.
Oh,
and I went, and I'm pretty sure I saw August down there too. We went down because my brother was at university at that time, and my brother John was he attending?
Where was he staying?
Well, so we stayed at, I think, Ascot, the Ascot Hotel.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we stayed there until they kicked us out. You know, typical Aucklanders going down, think we rule the place, and then you get a bit of a, get a check. But I remember, I've always, after that, I guess that was my initial first trip out of Auckland. I thought, I like Hamilton. It's not, it's like our mate Joey and I will say it's the city of the future. And it's, it does have a bit of a odd reputation, but I don't mind Hamilton. What about you? How did you find it? Since you did study,
I found it a lot different, particularly going from a brotherhood at Helston, and then having your friends, and then going to an environment where, man, because it was literally close your eyes, go to a place that you know no one, and man, when I first got there, man, I hopped in my room. I was staying at College Hall. Man, I cried because I was like, far out, what have I just done? But little did I know that actually set me up for some of the biggest self-development, because I just had no one to turn to. It was like, okay, open this door and you got to get on with life, because didn't have money. I knew no one there. There were no friends. My brother and family were back in Auckland, and man, it literally, you grew up in 3 years, which is probably the catalyst to independence, and how I've created that independence ever since. So it was massive. As a township, oh man, it was rough, man. But as you stay there and you built up some of those friendships, and then that kind of sort of provided a good distraction from living away from home. And at the end, it was probably sad to leave the place. But was glad to definitely get back to Auckland.
Because at the end of your high school year, like, what was in your mind thinking about higher learning? Like, obviously you didn't go to Auckland, but what made your decision to go down to Hamilton? Well, did you already know that you wanted a different environment?
Just because of the course that I was doing was down the leisure science, so it was a way of actually going down there. And I 96 rugby went professional, so trying to forge a path through rugby, but my backup option was always going to be in sports psychology, because I thought, man, if I can't get in it through participation, then I'll get it through employment. So that was kind of how I sort of thought, okay, all right, I'll go and do this. And particularly to move away from Auckland, it was, man, a few sleepless nights. But being young and thing, it was a blessing in disguise, because it did, man, it made you literally grow up. You turn from a boy to a man literally overnight. It was that. And that's created a solid foundation in terms of just the way that I apply to work, to daily life. It's actually, it strengthens that whole psychology. Nothing's ever a challenge, man. It's just finding a solution. It's just another obstacle in the way that you find. So, and that was probably the pathway forward was to go there and have that as a backup option. If rugby didn't go anywhere, and rugby didn't go anywhere.
So how long was that? Well, was that course?
3 years.
Oh, yeah.
Another funny story when we're just coming back to Kelston. So I was sitting in the lecture room first day, and I turned to the side, and there was a guy there, Aaron Tamaki, and I said to him, "Hey bro, is there any good rugby clubs?" Because through that we had Mr. Parsons, so he had kind of already set up to go and play for university. But it was just like, I sort of thought about university, and I thought, man, you've got all these people coming from different, it's going to take a few years to sort of get them to gel. So I was thinking, I've got to go to a club that's established. So I turned to this guy and I said, hey, is there any good clubs around here? And he says, Yeah, just the university. They've got all the, you go for the trials and things like that. And I said, oh yeah, all good, all good. Anyway, the lecture continued on. About 10 minutes later, he turns and goes, oh, anyway, where are you from? I said, oh, Auckland. He goes, oh, okay, well, what school did you go to? Oh, Kelston Boys. He goes, oh, okay. What we got is Marist trials. Marist trials. And where are you staying? Oh, I said, I'm at College Road. He goes, oh, I'll come pick you up. So, and that was his club.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I was like, yeah, that's us. That's cool. And he ended up cutting hair. He knew how to cut hair. So over the next sort of week or two, I sort of got to know him a bit more. Went down to Marist, jumped in the trials, got into the second team, and then got pulled into the first team. Now the first team had basically 10, 11 Chiefs players at the time, So, but me being typical Aucklander, turned up to training in an Auckland jacket. It was Kevin's jacket. Thanks, Kevs. Yeah. And so it was just like and that was probably just the young dumb attitude that I sort of employed. Hey, Auckland's number one. Forget the rest. Which is really, really stupid, because had I been given the opportunity, there were definitely some opportunities that could have sort of graduated into bigger things rugby-wise. But I'm a firm believer that there's a reason for everything, and had I gone down that path, I wouldn't have probably met my beautiful wife, and had the kids that I have. So whilst I know it's an opportunity that was lost, there's been a bigger picture.
So who are the Chiefs players that were in that team?
Bro, Marty Holler, Jono Gibbs, Glenn Jackson, Matthew Cooper. So
that's pretty stacked. That's a pretty stacked team, man.
It was.
How was it playing?
We had who was Dave Dillon. He was another flanker. I got caught up to one game, and unfortunately my focus was on other things other than rugby. And I always sort of thought the opportunity would come back. Being at that age, I thought, nah, man, I'm good enough. Don't have to go to a trial. Don't have to do this. Don't have to turn up for rugby. The opportunity will always be there. And I learned the lesson the hard way, that opportunities may not necessarily be there, and it's a perfect example of it. So yeah, we had some. We had the not who's Jono Gibbs. He's the Wellington thing. Chris Gibbs. He was there. So yeah, there was a good team, man. There was a good team in that Marist, Hamilton Marist team.
When you came to that fork in the road, did like a brand new opportunity just pop up that you really wanted to take, other than sticks rugby? Yeah.
No, it was just more the focus on that. It was some of the worldly things that I focused on, and that was the distraction, unfortunately. Which to this day, again, I'm a firm believer of that. There's reasons for that to happen, but it's just choices that I made on that. And I always thought that rugby would always be there. I was young, confident in my ability to be able to do that, but it doesn't matter how good you are, those opportunities there, and particularly there's always another person that wants to take that opportunity, and that other person did.
Yeah, talking about, you said you had other distractions. What do you think? You still done your degree in 3 years. That's pretty good, man, because a lot of people, I know a few people that have, taken the scenic route to a degree. Or how did you maintain that focus, though? Because you're saying that you had that rugby. Also, you had the body. I know, because being a student, or down in Hamilton, it's pretty easy to go out on a Friday or Saturday night. But for you to maintain your focus in that, was it hard for you, or?
It might have been worse if you were still up in Auckland.
Well, I thought about just on that game as the Auckland travel. I just thought about the logistics and the cost to be able to then travel here and think about classes, given the intimate, and you couldn't really sort of plan, because you'd have to go in there, the cost to be able to do that. So I thought, logically, if I was on site and I was next to the university, great, I'll balance that out. And that's why I sort of went to Hamilton. And that was kind of that. How do I stay focused? Just my upbringing. It was always all about change. When you're in a house that has a 2-bedroom and you've got 6 people living in it, when you see other kids growing up with having the shoes, having the clothing, having the outings, the overseas trips, not having a lot of food in the house, not having a lot of money. Basically, the only thing that we kind of had at times was a bit of love. And it was always a promise I made to myself that I wouldn't let my kids grow up in the same environment that I had. Another university story. When you get your student allowance, you pay your accommodation, you do other things, I was left with $15 a week, every week, right? So all the costs then, cool. Now that $15 was to basically cover everything else. Stationery,
Shucks.
man, food that you had outside of what we had through the halls, clothing, that was it, man, $15 a week. So anyway, I met a couple of guys down there, and one's now a GM of a massive company here, another one's a chief financial officer of a big food company. And they were great guys, and they're still great guys to this day. But we went out to Burger King in Te Rapa, and we turned up there and said, "Yeah, hungry?" Yeah. So when I checked my bank account, man, I knew I had like $7.50. You know, so it's like, but man, I was starving, man, and I was like, okay, cool. And anyway, go up to order, and they're like, you know, they're backed by the mum and dad, you know, they're backed by mum and dad, you know, financially. So I'm rolling up there knowing, man, I've only got $7 in this account, you know. So I'm like, what are you going to get us? Oh man, I'm not hungry, man. So I go get a kid's meal. It was $5 something, because that's all I could afford, you know. And I just remembered, man, I just said to myself, far out, man, I never, if my kids want to go to university or do something, I just don't want them to worry about money. And ever since that day, it's always been embedded, and I thought, that's it. So when you talk about focus, it's those things there, in addition to some of the goals I set when I was quite young, growing up in an environment that lacked resource, financial resource, or lacked food. Those created, you know, those I suppose that motivation there, just to say, hey, I've got to change the cycle somehow.
You know, that's so cool, man, because, you know, there's a lot of things to motivate people, and being, you know, in that situation, that some people can take it like, oh, that's the way it is, fuck it, or fuck, I don't want to be like this, I got to do something about it, you know.
It's often the mantra, and unfortunately a lot of us fall victim to it. You know, we always look at an excuse, because that's naturally the default position. Let's blame this person, or let's blame that environment, let's blame that opportunity that we missed. And the problem is really just trying to re-engineer the thinking. Well, hang on, that's an opportunity. Every opportunity that is put in front of us, man, is an opportunity provided by God. We've just got to think, how do we analyse that? And I suppose the old saying, lost in translation, it's the same principle that applies. If we were to line up 10 different people, they'd all have a different interpretation of that opportunity. Or they might say, no, that's an obstacle. And it's that thought to say, okay, hang on, what is this that I've got in here? If it's an obstacle, how do I get around it? What are the solutions? Or some people look at it and go, no, that's too hard, man. I'm going to go over here. And unfortunately, that's a lot of our thinking. Our thinking's applied like that. Everyone that knows me, man, I'm just all about finding a solution. And that solution is, if there's a brick wall 10 times, I'll find a way. I'll find a way to get over it, man.
That's like a mentality thing, eh?
Oh, it's absolutely the psychology that it is. I listened to, when we talked about some of the motivational stuff, Eric Thomas is a massive guy that I follow. Have you heard of him?
He's the hip-hop
preacher.
Yeah, hip-hop preacher.
Now, a lot of his stuff is motivational. It's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily give you the tools to then, I suppose, work on. But one of the things that he says is that one thing that's equal with everyone in this world is that we've all got 24 hours in a day. How we use that day will determine what will be and where we'll be. So if you think of it as a currency, you've got to spend that 24 hours in a day. How do you spend yours? How do you spend yours? I know how I spend mine. And I have quite a meticulous way that when I'm planning my day, if I don't plan my day just goes downwards, man. So when I get up in the morning, that's the first thing that I do. And it's around that sort of mentality and saying, okay, how do we then set that mind frame up so that when we are confronted with an obstacle, and life is just going to smash us in the face every single day, doesn't matter how meticulous we are with planning, doesn't matter what resources we have at our hand, life just smashes you in the day, every day.
Yeah, I think that's the first, I believe that's the first thing you have to You have to see for yourself that life is hard. You know, no one's going to give you anything. Like, you got to get it. You know, you got to.
Well, it's where people will go, that I know a lot of people will go, oh man, this is too hard to do. But if you actually start thinking about and start breaking it down, why is it hard? What is actually hard? What is hard? And it is, if we can, it's the mentality that we default to.
Do you think that mentality can be taught, or is it just within people that can just overcome, or is it with those people that is just within them, it's just easier for them, and people that maybe I'm talking about the people who are like depressed and get into mental health and all that kind of stuff, but not able to overcome.
Yeah.
If those are the type of things that are holding them back, or those obstacles you talk of, like how is it? There's a mentality of this is an obstacle. It's not an obstacle. It's a challenge. You know, turning an obstacle into a challenge.
I suppose the first thing from a personal perspective is I just don't like losing. I'm just all about, okay, I'm going to find a way to win. And I think as I've got older, as I've been younger, that's kind of always been the mentality, because growing up there were all those challenges, and I was that person making the excuses, saying life is too hard, saying that the challenges that I'm confronted, why me? And then it just got to a stage where I'm just like, man, you know what? Something has to change here. Now I can't control all those variables. I can control this variable. And that's probably where it started. So I think in terms of learning it, yeah, I learned through motivational tools, through acceptance that the world is going to be a challenge, and that if it's to be, it's actually up to me. No one else can. I'm not going to leave my fate up to everyone else to control the destiny of my outcome. So yeah, I think it definitely can be taught. I'm a product of it.
No, that's
when you were talking about, how you said, like, you came to a point. Is there a defining point when you knew that this is how I'm going to approach things, or like you said, learn? The first steps would have been when you went down to Hamilton, university by yourself. This first couple of nights would have been really tough, and then knowing, man, it's the only person I can depend on here is me. Is that where you got? Is that the initial steps, or did because when we were at school together, I always knew you, like, you were the guy that you were still, you were the on the field. You'll give everything, and I knew that talking to you and seeing you, you're the guy that in the classroom done the same kind of thing as well.
Yeah, I suppose a lot of the foundation was when I was young. Like in the environment we grew up in.
So that's purely from the environment, or did your parents say to you, "This is what we would like you to do"? This was it shown to you?
Yeah, my mum and dad were quite liberal in our upbringing, and that really gave me the flexibility to sort of build myself rather than have these constraints. Hey, you can't drink, you can't smoke, you can't go out. Thankfully, we didn't have those constraints, and I suppose at a young age we were then taught that we've got to sort of self-manage to an extent. Now in the far north in Waiman, Hokianga, where I grew up with my mum, we were surrounded by a lot of whānau. So that allowed, you could just go next door, and aunties, uncles, and that was awesome. So we always had that, I suppose it created that confidence, and being in such a small community, everyone knew everyone. So you could hang out late at night, you could do that. So to some extent, the controls of being a youngster, as opposed to probably living in Auckland, we got to kind of grow up quite quickly, in there. As I moved to Auckland to live with my dad, because my mum and dad had split, then there was a different dynamic there that again probably created some level of independency. Unfortunately, in the far north, life is alcohol, drugs, gang life, and I had a very a caring mother, had a very inspirational nana, who basically said, life is not here. go out to the world, then come back and make a difference. Then, so on those, there was always that thought, hey, I've got a bit of responsibility here, even at a young age, to actually go out into the world and do something. And then when I came to Auckland, my dad was probably focused, remembering that he didn't have children until my older brother came down, so at teenage, so for him it was just like, whoa, oh, far out, I've got some kids. Whilst he was part of our life, of our upbringing, it was just like, far out, hang on, I've got them full time. So I think my dad still had to adjust to having us, and by his own admission, he said that. He said, man, So in that upbringing at Kelston, whilst it seemed, on face value, everything looked all good, man, there were some challenging times in Auckland, man. There was one day we went for food without 3 days. We had a piece of meat between 5 of us, and we didn't go to school because, one, we couldn't afford it. Two, man, we had this ration of food that had to last us 3 days until the next benefit day. So it was those times there, just, you get thinking as a kid, or as a teenager at that time, man, I don't want to live like this, man. I don't want to be, I don't want to be putting my kids or even myself, probably at that time, in this situation where food is scarce. And then I suppose those sort of that environment, those days really started to build up the fact that, hey, something's got to change, man, and don't make sure you don't get here. So somewhere in that stage, I promised myself, not going to be like this. And my kids, man, they can walk into a place and go, yeah. Whilst I always say to them, hey, no, we can't afford it. My kids can walk into something and go, I'll buy that. I can buy that. I can buy that. Yeah, without them having to worry. So yeah, I think it did start from a young age, but I think as I matured, it became a bit more focused, and that was kind of ties back into how I sort of focused through university, and just those opportunities that, when they do come along, I've taken them.
So you came back up to Auckland after studying, graduated from Waikato, home of the mighty Chiefs. I need to drop that in also. I know how much...
I think I've got a hanky Chiefs.
I know how much of a Blues fan, I follow you on Instagram, DJ Azza. But so you came back up. What'd you do when you got back up here? You had a degree now? Was it like straight and like, yo,
Was it degree again?
Leisure science, so it was like a broad spectrum of sports science and around these sorts of things. So when I got back into Auckland, it was November, and I immediately started looking for some work. So I looked in the Herald. That was the old times. Then I looked in the Herald. Oh, yep, sweet. Trying to apply for this job, and it was a Westpac, for a Westpac teller. So I thought, oh man, I'll do that while I find a job in sports psychology, because I did psychology as a conduit. So I rang through, made the application, and over the phone. Then basically they said, if you haven't heard from Westpac in a week, you've been unsuccessful. So anyway, I tried that and didn't hear from them. So anyway, we were having a few drinks, and I think it was just before Christmas. No, sorry, it was January. And phone rings, and it's just like, hey, so-and-so from Westpac, you want to come in for an interview? And I was like, whoa, sweet, so I was like, oh yeah, cool. So I went in there and got the job, and I thought, sweet, this will be a temporary thing until I can sort of source something that I've studied in. And then fortunately enough, the guy that hired me, he was a rugby fan, so he sort of saw the CV. Oh yeah, cool. And he said, all right, man, well, I'm going to hire you, but you have to come play for my club. And I said, man, I've been out of the game for a bit, man. And that was messy. So I was like, yes, sweet, man. Hire me, man. I want the job. I'll do it. So I joined that. Went up and played Messi topside for a bit.
Was Philip Jones playing up in Messi at that point?
Yeah, we had was Phil Jones up there? I can't remember. We had Malua.
Oh yeah, Malo Tipi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fusa Palamo.
Yeah.
Tani Funga.
Chongfuk was Andrew Chongfuk
at
that point? Was he
with Takapuna, the trader.
Shirky.
Yeah, and then we had this other superstar, Aaron Tuafale.
Hey.
So, but same, the focus was a little bit diluted at the time. It was kind of, again, the focus, the energy wasn't in rugby. It was like, hey, yeah, I'll jump in and that. But we had a good team, and it was good to get back into Auckland rugby on that. And then, so I joined Westpac as a teller, and the guy that I was with there, he was awesome manager. One of the best bits of advice he said to me, I think it was 3 months into the job, and he said, hey, when you become a manager like me one day, I was like, hey, because I was just mucking around. He just said to me, you always got to remember one thing, and it stayed with me to this day, is that you can't wear the hat to keep everyone happy. And I was like, hey, what does he mean by that? And as years went on,
so he didn't explain it to you.
No.
So you had to try and figure out what he meant. Oh, okay.
Well, when I walked in, he said, "Hey, Aaron, come." So I came into his office. I said, "Yeah, what's going on?" He goes, "Oh, mate, you're going to go places. You got the gift of the gab." And he said, "But remember one thing: you can't wear the hat to keep everyone happy." I was like, "No, I can keep everyone happy, man. Yeah." And essentially, as a couple of years went on, it was a management thing, and basically, it was when you manage people, you can't keep everyone happy, so don't wear that hat. To try and keep everyone happy, because you try and keep these people happy, then this is so. It was a management tool that was there, and thankfully I got the opportunity through Westpac to do that, and that's when I sort of found out, hey, I remember that. Oh, that's what he was talking about.
It sort of makes sense, because when you're a manager, you're actually a leader, and leaders, they make hard decisions.
Oh, that's exactly what leaders are to do. You've got to go in there and make those hard decisions. Unfortunately, when you've got when you take into account the emotional aspect of it, and hey, that's part of managing, it can cloud some of those judgments. But you're employed, and your role is to basically lead.
Yeah.
And leadership comes with hard decisions.
And be a professional, because man, I learned that in my job. Like my boss, I've had for the last, I think, almost 20 years now. I see that guy. He's the true professional. Like everything that's personal is out the door. From the time he's in the office, he's just professional all the way. Like in terms of like no emotions. It's hard to explain. It's like
it's actually a hard personality to have, because you essentially got to assume two identities, really.
And he does. He does.
Yeah.
He's off. How they say off the field. They're like the man, and he's your mate. But on the field, they're like
all business.
All business.
Well, it's the old cliche, sort of work hard, play hard. But when you're at that stage, that I found it's hard. It's difficult, because when you're dealing with real life situations, deaths, injuries, kids, it's hard to then balance that out, and to differentiate between leadership as a manager and leadership as a person.
Yeah, that's also interesting, because it's like we know what the bottom line is to make the job more. You got to make it efficient. And like sometimes, like you say, like there's that emotional thing that might come in between, and you have to sort of make people not be like robots, but kind of like.
Well, it is, because it is a bit of a balance too, because if you in a team, if you've upset someone, then that's effectively going to upset productivity. So there's all those things that I suppose the mechanics of being a manager, not just saying, all right, I'm the manager and I wear this badge, or she wears this badge. It's the mechanics of actually being a manager, and people can manage, but then I suppose there's a difference between good managers and bad managers, and that's quite significant, particularly because at the end of the day, your role is to manage, but ultimately generate revenue for any business that you're in, which is why I stepped out of a job. Because of that. So particularly with jobs, I just found that, man, all you're doing is making everyone else money. And then I got to a stage I don't like that.
So that was during your days at Westpac?
No, this is recent. Yeah, no, with Westpac. I left Westpac because I had a book that we had a target, or I suppose sales target, and I was doing things then through Westpac. I was being creative on how we did some of our things, like not charging establishment fees and legal costs, and which is what banks and that do today as a standard part of their practice. And they had some management at the time come in from Australia, and they had a bright idea that managers in Australia that have a different demographic, that probably know nothing about New Zealand, particularly some of the suburbs, central Auckland, you could argue. But coming from Australia, the concept was that we'll bring successful managers over from there, put them into New Zealand, and start getting them to generate more of the bank's market share at the time. And it didn't work. So I just sort of said, well, hey, if you're not going to support us at managerial level, I'm out of here. And it was just like, man. And that was when I left. I left the banking environment.
How long were you there for?
I was about 6 years.
Okay.
I was the fastest. I went from teller to lending within about a year and a half.
Yeah.
At one stage, I was the only male lender at West Auckland. I was the youngest. I was brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was setting some crazy records in that. And that was probably more just off natural ability than actually a thing, and the fact that I had a guy that, played for his rugby club and he was helping me get some of these positions. So, but it was good. It was a good environment to be in. It's always the one that was a bit scary to leave because the job security, and wearing a suit and tie to work, great. But once you step out on that environment, for me, I'd never go back because I just thought, far out, man. Value-wise versus reward, man, I was underpaid significantly, man. Significantly.
It seems arrogant what they did, those Australians. If you imagine us, we need to have more of a demographic in France. Let's just go over there and just work over there. Well, rather than getting those people to teach them how to do it. So they.
I mean, the concept was great, but it was always going to be flawed simply because of the fact that they're coming to an environment that they're not used to.
Exactly.
And they come in and it's just like, okay, we need to replicate that. And there was clashes. Some really senior staff had left. Good guys, good people that knew Auckland. There's a regional manager there that left, and it was just like, man, managers that I suppose established that brand that had given their lives to Westpac. They were just being cut. And I suppose that's one of the things that, particularly one of the regional managers there, when it got cut, it's just like, man, you can do the time, but when the job finishes, so does your income. And they talk about jobs, JOB, a lot of the, I suppose, guys that I listen to just over broke. And I'm just, nah, man, that's rubbish, man. Why is that thing there? But then I start thinking about, when I actually finish work, my income stops. And that's kind of, which was the catalyst to sort of propelling into my brokering business.
Yeah, I know, because, all the experience you had from Westpac, like you said, took you to where you are now. Like, you're probably the furthest way from what you studied at university.
Oh, it is. It's always a thought. But sport naturally was kind of where I was probably going to make a natural progression to, or transition to. And that was kind of, and I was thinking, rugby's professional, great. If I can't do it by participation, I'll do it by some other way. And sports psychology was the pathway that I thought I could get in there, or sports management. That was kind of the pathway. But then this opportunity came up, and I just haven't looked back ever since. It was great to put on the suit and tie, Man, I just thought, far out. Man, I was flipping out 10 metres tall. No one could touch me. But then when I stepped out of that environment, I thought, far out. I'm lucky I did get out. But I did that, I was scared getting out of the environment. So, and now, I'm in financing. And
so that was straight after Westpac?
No, so I went to another company called PMI.
Okay.
Which insured the money that banks give out. So I went from to assessing the risk.
Yeah.
And it was good, man, because...
So you would know, you've already got the inside running because you probably have a kind of...
within
feel
reason,
for it,
yeah.
yeah.
Because I suppose finance is it's quite a broad area,
Yeah.
and where on that spectrum does my, I suppose, expertise fall within? And so yeah, it definitely created the foundation as to where I am at the moment, and I'm thankful for those opportunities that were there. But since I've got out from there, because I suppose that then you can become institutionalized, and I've seen that with a lot of people that are still in those environments. And now maybe it becomes a bit too late for them to say, well, hey, I want to make a change because I'm scared. This is all I've known. And I suppose the ability to upskill there is probably too far reach in their mind on there. So, but yeah, it definitely created some of the tools.
Yeah, so I
where
can
I
see
am
the
at the
pathway now.
moment.
You know, Westpac Bank, and then you were working for the insurance, insuring the bank loans and all that.
And that was awesome. That was awesome because you could actually get to the other side. So
Yeah.
when you're trying to advocate a application or credit, then you get to the other side. So you'd have three stages. The assessor or the bank staff member would assess it. If it had to go to credit, then that credit we would underwrite the losses. So that application would get approved by credit, then come across our desk.
Yeah.
So I was sitting there going, oh yeah. This credit manager, hey, I remember that.
So the last big financial crisis, 2009, I think it was 2009, 2010. Was that?
GFC?
Yeah, that was before that happened. You were there at the.
No, yeah, so it was. Yeah, it was before then. But then I went into brokering. So I left PMI, and I went into brokering, which I've been since.
Oh.
And that's when the GFC sort of hit.
So was that for a company when you went brokering, or were you?
Yeah, no, I went in for the company that I'm still working for, or contracting to today is Bradley Associates, now Illuminate Financial Group. And yeah, during that GFC was a tough time for a lot of people, you know, in terms of that.
For you, was it interesting because you were behind the scenes, like working in those sort of institutions?
Yeah,
And then when it came on, like for me, I didn't know anything about it until I watched that documentary. The one of
Well, you're talking about the movie,
yeah,
The Big Short.
Big Short, and that was the only time I realized, oh man, this is what it's all about. But for you, like when it happened, like did you have an idea of why it was happening? And
Not really. I suppose what I can say in that particular time is that it was quite scary because it literally got down to a time that I was wondering if I was going to get paid. So checks had to be presented. Oh, okay, can we present this? Normally get paid on a Friday. Oh no, you could actually go take this check on a Monday or Tuesday, you know. So it was very isolated, maybe one or two times, but thankfully the company that I work for and the guy that runs that, you know, he's of the same mentality, man. It's just like, man, we'll get through this. But it was quite scary because people were starting to sell property, you know, as property prices were dropping, and they offloaded those properties. Stupid thing is that had they just kept on to it, those properties would be double or triple the value.
But that was just panic, you know, because did they just panic because they thought this could get even worse, or?
If I could turn back the hands of time and probably know what I know now, there's a pretty simple principle for me when it comes to financing. When people are making a decision around selling a property, if you can afford to keep it, because the more time you spend in the market, the better your return. So I could go back then. It was a lot of panic, you know, not having, I suppose, the education that I have now, and the experience to sort of say, hey, hang on, man, let's have a think about this a bit more. How do we break it down? How do we actually retain that asset? Because we know that asset that you've got now, when you brought it, you wouldn't have brought it at their value. You know, if you look at properties now, you're not going to buy them at what they were 10 years ago, or sell them, for less than what they were 10 years ago. And that's just the nature of property. The longer you stay in it, the better your return. So if I could take back the hands of time, yeah, I mean, I probably lacked a bit of experience to really talk to customers financially prudently. But yeah, it was panic, and people were just offloading it because of the fact that they just didn't want to be in a position that they'd lose their home ultimately. So a lot of the investments that were being sold were property investments, and a lot of people that probably had business were selling homes to stay alive financially through their businesses. And I saw a lot of good people that had good incomes have to start again.
Yeah.
So it wrecked a few people. It wrecked a few people, yeah.
You know, comparing that time to this time that we've had during this whole year, since COVID, since we had the lockdown, do you see any similarities? Like, do you see people, has there been a kind of panic? Because they're saying that the house market's up at the moment. Is that the kind of like a feel like people are kind of panicking as well? Or is it out of desperation because they've lost their jobs and they want to sell it because they still want to try and keep their money? Or
I suppose the first thing is that people get caught up in the media. And that kind of seems to be the catalyst for a lot of their thinking. Were there similarities between COVID and the GFC? Yeah, there probably are. But I suppose a lot of that is speculative.
yeah, that's right.
So some people have. I've had a client that was earning 140 grand a year. He got made redundant last week. But it's a matter of just sort of talking through some of those options and finding out exactly what the nuts and bolts are. I think the key thing is that don't read too much into what the media are telling you. You know, there's a certain narrative that can be, I suppose, directed through that. And the thing is that you get the facts. And every situation is going to be different. My situation is going to be different from yours, Ice. My situation is going to be different from yours, Ken. So I suppose it's just really getting the detail before making those decisions. And there's a lot of resources that are out there that can actually help sort of make some of those decisions there. But I'd say, yeah, there are some similarities, but don't read too much into what the media is saying.
You know, with that, like, it's all about supply and demand at the end of the day. Of the houses, like,
yeah.
you know.
I mean, house prices in Auckland particularly is hot. You know, in that sweet spot, 600 to 800,000, that first home buyers market or space, that's hot. People are transacting very, very quickly, paying a little bit more for the prices. I'm definitely finding that in the market at the moment. But a door will open. You know, people that are out there doing that, a door will open for those people, and they will find their home. Unfortunately, a lot of that activity is stimulating the market, which means that if you want to pay a little bit more, the neighbour down the house, you know, down the road says, hey, he sold it for 20 grand more than there's that domino effect. Then all of a sudden that then pushes prices up. So their neighbour, a couple of streets, hey, they sold for so and so, and it just starts pushing the prices up. I suppose one thing that we can't neglect though is that through the sales, there is a net effect of that. You know, that creates revenue. The agent sells a property. I finance a property. The bank generates money that goes back to the employer. So there is, you know, I suppose whilst we talk about, I suppose to some extent, the adversity of house prices, it is helping to stimulate the economy on those things, and often those things are probably overlooked or not considered. So that allows people to put food on the table through that sale process.
I heard it was part of it, a lot of it, the reason why the market's hot or a lot of these people are buying houses because you're finding a lot of expat or Qs coming back from overseas because of COVID, and they're the ones that are, because I made this comment because we all listened to it at work, and it was a news headline like, you know, the price of houses, and I said to one of the guys at work, oh, it must be all the Asians buying up the houses, you know, because if you're looking around, you know, like our area, they're buying plots of land and they're putting free houses on this one spot, you know, and I always assumed, oh, that's because that's what Asians coming in and buying it. But then he was like, no, I heard a lot of it's expats, people coming back because of the security, or that, you know, how New Zealand's managed to battle past COVID, and, you know, we're probably the only country at the moment that doesn't have any limitations. There's no lockdowns in it. Are you finding with your job, are there people coming to? Are you noticing that at the moment, or have you heard about that?
Yeah, I definitely have.
Trend, yeah.
Another addition to that is that people that were saving up for OEs, or people that had planned to do overseas things, that money is not being spent now. So it's sitting in the kitty. We can't go anywhere. What do we do with it? Let's buy a property. So I think, it's probably a combination of factors, and that's probably one contributing factor is that people are coming in and they're cashed up.
Yeah.
They are cashed up. I had a lady call me last week, 35, she had $500,000 in the bank. And I'm just like, man, you've done well. She said she worked for a company, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I thought, oh, sweet. Finished the phone call, Googled her. And she was actually legal counsel for a company. So I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah. So, that competition is definitely apparent. And particularly for first home buyers that have limited budgets, are competing with it, and they can only drive the price up at an auction so much, and then these people that do have the extra hoot can then come in and say, hey, you've taken as far, I'll take over, and spend that extra 5-10 grand. So unfortunately, that's some of the competition that's definitely evident in the market at the moment.
Well, the high Auckland house prices have been a topic for last 15 years. To bring the prices down, that would be near impossible. Like, I think there's incentives that the homeowners wouldn't want that, because it means their value of their homes will go down too. So they would want to keep that supply and demand real thin.
Yeah, I mean, the Reserve Bank did implement some rules, loan to value or LVRs. Some of those rules were kind of implemented to slow down property values. They were then released on the back of COVID, and I'm finding that in the market there's definitely a lot of a spike in activity. I don't think that, because I suppose there's a lot of economic factors that you could then argue with house prices going down. One of those in particular is that it reduces the equity position of someone being able to leverage that to buy another asset, a business, which adds, I suppose, to the financial infrastructure of them locally, wherever they're based, and nationally, through creating the businesses and all those things. So COVID's going to be an interesting thing to see where that goes. If businesses start closing down, then there's going to be not a lot of discretionary funds to be able to probably spend. And saying that though, interest rates are low. So, and that's a big contributing factor, because people look at the repayments and go, I can actually afford that. Whereas if we're sitting up around 4 or 5%, I'm on the fence. So, yeah, I really don't think house prices, particularly when you talk about supply and demand, if you strip back all the economics, one thing that probably remains consistent, probably up until COVID, was immigration. We just don't have the housing to accommodate Auckland's population. So that lack of supply is always going to mean that there's the demand there.
But which is the reason why I thought, like, the Kiwi Build thing was gonna, they promised us 10,000 houses in a certain amount of years.
Yeah. They ended up with 55. They try to cook the books there for a bit. You remember how they had this other, that's why you're laughing. That's how you're laughing.
No, to be perfectly honest, the Kiwi Build thing for me, I just don't know enough about it. It's not a market that I probably work in.
Okay.
And to probably give it an educated opinion around that. The space that I work in is anywhere between $500,000 and $10 million. That's kind of, and on that space there, for me, particularly now that I've got a business, is around transacting and being quite fluid on those transactions. And Kiwi Build, great transactions and great, but there's a lot of investment of time. And I've kind of run some calculations just around time versus return.
Yeah, your return, yeah.
And particularly with those sorts of things, those transactions, they're great, but they do involve a lot of time. And for me, the economics probably just don't stack up there. I get them in, and there's an opportunity to sort of pass them on to other team members in the company, if that's a transaction they have the capacity to take on that.
So you've mentioned company. So, man, what's the name of your company, also, and how long has it been going? How many workers do you have? Because I'm telling you the truth, from the moment we started recording, I've honestly, you've been inspiring, man. Like, I've learned so much. I've learned all these little terms that you're saying, and even JB, I thought, man, that was pretty good. Just over break. I mean, shucks, never really looked at it like that. But your business. So
yeah. So my business is so Illuminate Financial Group is our parent company.
Yeah.
I sort of pay to have a seat in that company. And the reason I've done that is because the guy that heads that up has looked after me for 14 years, particularly through the GFC. So I contract and basically pay to have a seat back at that company, but I'm out there doing my own stuff. And formerly my company is Property Solutions. And basically I deal with anything related to property finance. So first home buyers, investment property purchases, renovations. I also deal with business finance. So anyone wanting to purchase a business, they'll come to me and say, hey, I want to purchase this business, and we'll do our due diligence around that business and give some feedback and structure it as to how you're going to buy that. And then I also do commercial finance. So people want to buy a commercial building, I'll look in that and I'll say, okay, these are some of the things that you need to consider. A lot of people in the industry specialise in certain areas, and there's a few of us that cover all those.
I was going to say that you're wearing quite a few hats there.
Yeah. So it's quite a good, I suppose it's quite a good tool to have in the belt, because when you're doing with the commercial space, residential space, you also offer the business space and the residential space, and a lot of the times they're intertwined. So it's just like, I want to go for, like a guy will come and say, I want to buy a business. Sweet. I want to use my house. Okay, cool. You kind of got the personal, you kind of got the business. So we would do that. And ultimately that's what I do. So for the brokering side, it's around sourcing finance. But the thing is that you've always got to have a point of difference. There's no point walking into, I suppose, a shoe shop and you're offering the same shoes. There's a difference. Well, they've got number one shoes and Foot Locker.
Yeah.
So if you adopt the same mentality, you've got to think, okay, what's your point of difference here? What are you going to do? Because in our industry, there's a lot of number one shoes, and there's a lot of Foot Lockers.
You gotta make sure you have the 89 Jordans or the Jordan ones.
So for me, it's about it's saying, where's the point of difference, man? Because how are you going to add value if you're going to offer the same thing as everyone else? So there's a few other things that we do to ensure that we're adding value. Like we can talk about structure on a very simple term, but things that we talk about things that you need to be talking to your lawyer. And we have a discussion about things you need to talk to an accountant. So there's all these, I suppose, peripherals. There's other layers that get added into the transaction. So when clients are walking in for finance, they walk out going, far out, man. I need to do my insurance. I need to do my legal wills. I need to do my trust structure. I need to talk to my accountant, man. I need to set up an LTC, look through company for tax purposes and all these things. So whilst we're not qualified to talk about that, these are just things that we start getting people to think about, because they don't. Often buying a property, buying a business is a milestone event. And for a lot of the times they do that and then they park it. And it's not till another milestone event happens, an injury, for example. Oh, shucks, I should have got the insurance. We only do the finance. But we make sure we do those introductions to these people that are able to then give you at least the advice. If you don't say, well, hey, no, man, flipping out, they're useless, go away. It's the same thing. Every time I talk to a client on financing, I say there's going to be two options with you. You're going to say, cool, I want to work with you, or you're going to tell me you're useless. I've had no one tell me I'm useless.
All these years, when I think of financial people, like advising their clients, I always wondered, like, how hard can it be? Like, can't you? Don't you know how to work your own money on? But you're saying like, no, that's people don't know, eh? People just don't know. People don't know the little details, the little hidden things that It's
the things that you probably get from experience, and when I look at financing, often, well, I perceive it that often people look at the numbers. You know, hey, you know, in a commission-based role, that's where I think people a lot of that focus. For me, there's people at the end of the transaction. If you focus on the people, then the rest of it will just fall into place. So if you service this person here in terms of their requirements, then the next steps will just flow into place on that. And when we talk about, I suppose, some of those things around advice, there's a lot of regulation that you can't step over. So for me as a property advisor, I can't step into the legal side. I can't step into the accountant side. I can't step into the insurance side because I'm not qualified. So what we do is we would say, or I would say, okay, these are some of the considerations that we need to do, and we might have a list, you know, but you have to talk to your professionals because we're not qualified. But I know the game. I know what's involved. I know what you need, and I know that once you purchase your house, you purchase your business, purchase your commercial building, you get on with life. And again, it's that milestone event. Like, for example, for an insurance thing, a lot of people say, no, it's too expensive. And then I said, well, I don't know insurance, but what pays for everything? Oh, my income. Cool. So if your income stops, what happens? Oh. Talk to someone about income insurance. It's expensive. I'm not the person to talk. I'm not qualified. Here's a number. So it's those sorts of things, because when we look at everything that pays it, we often neglect those things. Oh, we can't afford it. Well, can you afford not to have an income? Oh, no, I can't. No, okay. Where do I sign? Well, no, you can't just sign there. What are you actually getting? So it's all those sorts of, I suppose, those extra steps that we have. And we have, as property advisors, we have an obligation to make sure, there's a checklist that we have to make sure that we've made recommendations. You need to talk to someone, you need to talk to someone, then it becomes quite important. And I had two situations when I was at Westpac, both for life insurance. One family, and it was our Pacific Island families. One family, the husband passed away. Mum was basically coming in to talk to me about how to sell the house. The other situation, wife passed away, husband was coming in to say which mortgages to pay off because she had life insurance. And that's a pretty significant difference, you know, and it's an example, because when you've got people crying, you know, I'm losing my house, the memories, you've got all that stuff, you've got all the stuff that a number when you're buying it can't tell you, but when they're sitting it all becomes real. And you're like, man, and those are those memories that get embedded. So when I'm talking to people, it's like, man, you need to have a look at this. You got kids? Cool. Yeah, okay. You need to talk to someone. Cool. You got wills in place. Okay, yeah. And you may not necessarily get that from all people, but that's the service value that I add to make sure that we're quite comprehensive in that.
Man, that's, that story about you had people coming in when their partners have passed away. I had the same situation with my mum. She passed away from cancer, and we had never dealt with the bank. She done all that stuff, so she, my dad was only there just to, when they say initial and sign.
Yeah.
But that's all my dad knew, and she was really fortunate to have a really nice woman at the bank that she dealt with. She was with BNZ, and she came and she said, like, we went in because we'd never dealt with her before. She passed. My mum passed, so we went on the Tuesday, and we were really fortunate that they had built up a really good rapport. Like, they were really, she knew about me. I was that son. She had two other sons, one going to university and one who had the kids, over in Australia, and I was the son that, that one. So, she said that, and we both laughed. She's like, I'm sorry to hear about your mum. Look, this is what we can do. And I remember my dad, because he was distraught, like he was crying during the whole time. And then when she sorted it all out, she said, I know your mum's got a will, I know she's got life insurance. We'll talk about, she gave us an overdraft. When the will comes, when the life insurance kicks in,
awesome.
Come back and we'll talk again. So she said, my dad was like, oh, what are we going to do with the money? And she said to my dad, I think you should pay off X amount of your mortgage with this life insurance, because then you'll be, it would only take you X amount of time to pay the rest off. So we own our house now. We've got no mortgage. and that was because of her advice. If it had come from me, if it had come from me or my brothers and that, or my sister, my dad, I think he would have been a bit hesitant because he would have went, "Oh, I don't know, do you know what do you know what we're going to get ourselves into?" But when she gave us that advice, and I'm just saying, like, from talking with your mum, and she's, and knowing your situation, how old you are, you're not going to be working for much longer. She was saying that for my dad. But although me and my brother were the ones that were paying the mortgage, it just shows, like, when we talk to people, have this, I don't know if it's back in the days, but when you talk to your bank and that, there's a kind of fear, especially with us Pacific Islanders. Hey, my mum was it seemed like Samoan was a second language because she was really fluent. Like, she knew how to say. That's why they had struck up the thing. My dad was still trying to, his grasp of English, it's good, but I mean, he couldn't have been able to comprehend or realize what she was saying. But we were just really fortunate that we had someone. Her name was Bobby. That we had someone like her, and that's the cool thing. Like, you're saying, like, when you get people, you're giving them advice too, or you say, "Look, I'm not telling you what to do, but this is what you should do." And I'm pretty sure that that's what she done for my mum too. Because I remember my mum coming home one day, "I need to do this, I need to do that," and I knew that every time she came back from the bank, she had something new that she had to cross off. So we were pretty blessed in that sense.
It is. It's often. Again, an additional service value that we add is because through the banks, and this is very generally speaking, is that there is a turnover of those people there. I suppose traditionally the banking role was kind of one you would aspire to a few generations ago, and that was kind of you had to hold, with the highest esteem, very privileged role. But now that's probably changed a lot. The people that would hold those roles move on quite quickly. Whereas my role, I ain't going anywhere, and I've got a vested interest. I've got a personal interest in making sure that this works. If there's no transactions, there's no income, and that's just not going to happen. So I suppose having that point of difference, being unique, and that is that there is a service proposition that's there, and clients are walking out going, "Oh, fuck, I didn't expect that."
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to be able to do that. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of time invested in that. But you then cement that long-term relationship. So you're not only going out to grind to look for customers. They just come back in the door. "Hey, I've got this other property. Cool, Aaron. Hey, yeah. Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, Bob. I know. Oh, yeah, cool. Let's go."
Is there are there a lot of Pacific Islanders in the game, or with you? Or
I haven't come across a lot, to be perfectly honest, particularly in the property finance game. They probably are, but and that's just because I just haven't invested the time. For me, only competition is me.
Yeah.
That's the only competition that I've got, and so I just don't spend my time resourcing or come across other people. I don't get out to a lot of networking things.
I was going to say, you don't go to those weekend away seminars or those kind of retreats with the other fishing retreats? Or am I watching too much Fugitive in those kind of movies?
No, I suppose for me it's just if it's adding value, then yeah, I'll invest my time, because that's essentially it. We talk about the currency of 24 hours in a day. That's exactly how I view the time. And for me, I've set some pretty significant goals in the next 10 years. I want to retire. And now, going into business for myself, that's kind of been the catalyst to actually doing that. I don't want to be working when I'm 60, 55, 60. I don't want to be that person. But I've got some significant goals that I've got to go down there. But it comes with sacrifice, particularly at the moment. Time is a massive factor. There's some sacrifice with family, which is noticeable, but the goal is clear. The glass is on, and I know I do it for my wife, my kids, and ultimately me, the last person, to be able to create that financial freedom. Because these kids, man, are going to be going into an environment. We talk about high house prices, Cam. Our kids are going to be going into that stuff to try and buy. And just imagine when they're looking to try and buy a property in Auckland, going and spending, $1 million used to be that was just unheard of
Yeah.
when we were at school. Now, that's what people are doing. $1 million. Yeah, well, that's the property I've got to buy. You know, and so to be able to set them up, I suppose, is the why. To make sure that they're not going through the times that we have, or the challenges, to be able to then secure that property. Our time is limited here, you know, and when the man upstairs says, hey, it's your time, you know, I want to rest easy and say, hey, at least the family back on earth is looked after financially.
You know, your parent company, do they do the same thing as you? Or?
Yeah. So we've got 11 staff, including myself in there. We haven't got all brokers. We've got a few analysts that sit in there. There's probably about 5 of us that are actual brokers, accredited brokers, that can go out there and give their advice. And then we've got an analyst, then we've got an admin, and we've got another lady that looks after our childcare, or the company's childcare, out in South Auckland. So the director there is, wanted to sort of give back to the community. A massive financial decision, massive investment, but it's for Cook Island kids in Otara, and he's been very, very strong with it, very tough on that. So yes, that's kind of the makeup of our company.
How do you have the energy to do that and still DJ at the Te Aratu Tavern, man? You know, I mean, meetings come up, man, but, you know, Fridays, I know, because it's on my way home, so, but because, you know, you always start about 9, I'm like, you know,
Well, man,
don't
I've
make
always,
the trip, you know?
I mean, I've always been motivated by, again, those financial goals, and working with that, and then doing the DJing. It's just part of the sacrifice, man. It's part of the grind, I suppose. We've got a t-shirt company too. Do a bit of consulting too. So it was just, where do you find the time? You just got to make it.
Yeah.
Man, it's tough. But, man, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And it's just a matter of just ticking those boxes, man. Just ticking those boxes.
You know, because you were saying, you know, because it was, you know, the financial reward, but I mean, just DJing, like, it's just, is that something you'd always...
Well, DJ, funny enough, like with the business side of things, I actually, I gave up the DJing with Te Aratu.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
A couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Oh.
Because this just got too busy.
Yeah.
My business just got,
Well,
got
it's
too
always
busy.
a good thing, eh? You know, if you get too busy to...
Yeah, and then I found that I'd do a Friday at the tavern. Then I do a private on the Saturday, and then it's Sunday, and that's normally shopping.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit of a sleep in, shopping, and then you're back on Monday. So that didn't worry me, but then I thought to myself, in terms of the commercial return on what I'm doing, that because DJing is, you know, a lot of people see the 4 hours or the 5 hours, or they see the time frame of playing. What they don't see is the planning, the music,
Yeah.
you know, that you've got, the setting up, the taking down, you know, the power naps, the gear, the errors with, you know, programs. Oh man, this player's not going. They don't see all that, you know, the investment in the equipment. So everyone sees up. Like for me, it's like for every gig that I do, again, that point of difference. Man, when I was doing a gig, it was not a matter of just doing a gig. It was being professional about the gig. So you'd ring up, hey, cool, I need to sit down with you. Like, what? DJ needs to sit down with me? Well, you know, we sit down. Cool, man, let's talk about the event. What's the schedule? What's the formalities? You know, what have we got? What sort of music? What's, you know, the person out there, what sort of music have we got? You know, and it's always talk about the events. Okay, when we're setting up, you know, and I'd make sure that I was always set up before the first person walked in. I'm not setting up during the thing.
Yeah.
You know, it was just all set up, and it was so there's a massive investment in funds and sound quality. It was all this real technical. Oh yeah, no, I need these speakers. I need this lighting on that. And so with the DJing side, man, it's just always been a passion. And it was just, and I finished when I had, I gave it up temporarily when I had my youngest boy, or my girl, sorry. And it was like, man, but then you'd always get the texts, hey, can you do that? Oh no, yeah, I'll pass it on. Then I just saw this money going out. And you know, when oh man, this is money that I'm just letting going out. I thought, so I jumped back into it, and Man, big props to the Waitakere licensing trust, because a guy out there by the name of Steve, he took a punt on me. So I had all this gear, and I put my sort of business hat on, and I said, man, because I don't want to do bars, I don't want to walk out flipping 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, you know, and then come back to kids. That wasn't, man, I didn't want to do that. I thought to myself, well, how can I get a return of this with the most minimal impact on my life, particularly with the kids? So I thought, man, I need to hit a bar, because I knew they have to close at 12, a local bar. You know, the clubs, they come, sweet. So, man, I just jumped on. I looked at all the trust bars, sent out an email. Yep, and what I did was I just underpriced it big time.
Nice.
And they gave me the lead in. And then slowly up the price. And man, I've been there for last 5-6 years, and they've been awesome, man. They've looked after me big time, you know, giving me all the opportunities, and it's been massive, you know, so they've really looked after me, and it's been great journey in terms of the DJing, but it just got to a stage with the business side of things, doing that flipping consistently 5-6 years, man. Friday, Saturday nights, it was just like, man. Then I looked at the return, and I thought, man, the stuff that I can do now, man, I can do that. I can do
Make that
4 gigs, man, one transaction.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, why would I do that?
Yeah.
Where's my time invested? And back to that 24 hours thing,
Yeah.
where can I invest my time? You know what? I'm going to take my time back here, and that allows me to be at home, because I suppose some of the other things that you don't see is, you know, my wife's at home with the 4 kids. I missed that opportunity, you know. I'm back through working and going back out. Then I'll have a Saturday. So it's like, man, I'm out again to set up at midday and private gig back at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So I've missed those 2 days. So it was not only investment financially, but it was also investment in terms of family time. Now I get to be home on a Friday, get to be home on a Saturday. And I haven't impacted. In fact, it's actually strengthened the financial side of things, because I've been able to create another vehicle to be able to then replace that and do more.
Man, that's awesome, man.
I'm thinking, like, you know, you've been in financial game for a while, long while. You're practically working with money every single day, sort of thing. Like all your experiences with money and through work, and man, you must have come up with a lot of ideas during the years. And
There's a lot of, definitely a lot of ideas as to. I think the thing is
that normal people won't think of, you know.
I think one thing I've learned is that, and I've been a victim of, is that when you're chasing the money is probably the wrong thing. Warren Buffett said on this thing I saw this morning, I think I was on the toilet this morning getting my inspiration, and so I'm just scrolling through my Instagram, and a lot of my Instagram, if you follow my pages, a lot of them is all the motivational stuff, and that's the feed, because given today's day and age, you know, the phone things, and I'm thinking, man, what can I do to try and, if I'm going to be on here, how can I use it productively rather than just scrolling, and I'll go through and look, and I'll do that, you know, and that's my downtime. So the lady asked him, and they saw a primary photo of him, and she said to him, did you know at that age if you were going to be rich? And he said, I was always going to be rich, but it wasn't about creating wealth, it was about creating time. And money allows you to do that. So I suppose there's 2 views that you can look at. Hey, you're chasing the money. But ultimately, because now I don't do a 9 to 5. I work from home. I go into the office to see some of the team on Wednesday. But all of that is that Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I wake up and choose my day. I'm not reporting to anyone. I'm not doing a 9 to 5, not being told when to go to lunch. I'm not told when you have breakfast. I drop my kids off in the morning. I can do the appointments on my son, with kids, going off to a Rainbow's End event, and I can do that. Whereas before I'd be like, oh man, I need to fit that in with work. Can I do that? Now, I choose my day. If I choose to sit there and be on my phone, I can do that. And that's what I suppose this business opportunity has created.
Yeah.
It's created the time. there's no denying the fact, man. I'm out to pump the business, and I'm out to sort of make some money and get those goals in 10 years. You know, shut up shop. But the business is going to be a vehicle that doesn't stop. That's going to be the vehicle that generates the income to be able to then allow me to then walk or step out from it and go, hey, that's doing its thing. You know, it's like a set of wheels on a car, man. Put them on, you know, and as long as you've got someone driving it and it's going in the right direction, that's all you need. You don't need to be there. You can be the passenger. You can be sitting at the back, or you can be at home. It's the same principle, man, with the business side. That's the model that I want. That keeps going, and I'm sitting out there. I don't need to be driving it.
I love what you said about chasing time, because for me, like, I think I've realized that late, like maybe this year or last year. You know, like, I've always been at my job and worked, you know, but never thought, what's the end goal here? Like, I back then, like, I never thought like there's gonna be a time when I'm gonna be like, okay, just day-to-day thing, you know what I mean? Like,
well, it's often something that we're the reality is that the world sets us up to think like that. That's the world. The world sets us up to go and do 9 to 5, get married, buy a house, have a dog, put up a fence. You know, and they say, man, you're successful. Strip back the layers and go, well, hang on, why do I need to do that? Why? Because school's taught us it. Society's taught us it. We're compliant. Unless we get to a stage where we're like, well, hang on, why are we doing that? Why do we have to go into university? Look at the likes of Bill Gates, Henry Ford. You know, these are guys that didn't have tertiary educations, or, you know, but yet we follow a model. We follow a model that is created by this world, and unfortunately our world is channeled to try and keep us in check. And when you step out, you're then often seen, you're ostracized. Hey, you're different, you know, and then the majority's saying, yeah, you're different, man, you're different. And then we say, oh, I don't want to be different, I want to jump back in. Fuck that, man. Just, man, live your life, do your thing, flipping out. I do not care about what anyone thinks.
was there a time you felt that, like when you went on your own?
Oh, every day. Every day you find, you know, it happened today, it will happen tomorrow. It's just the society that we bring in. You know, when you're the minority and you're made to feel the minority, then naturally the emotion will say, far out, I'm out of place here.
Yeah.
But I've just got to a stage where I just don't care now.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, I don't mind. Often people will see me walking out jandals, you know. Now I'll have the same t-shirt on in the morning for 3 days. Why? Because I'm saving time. I'm not looking in the wardrobe to go, I need that, I need that, I need that, I need that. Oh, I need to wear that, I need to wear that. I'm just like, no, man, if I'm warm, that's fine. I don't care about other people's opinions. I tell my kids too. I tell my wife, don't care. Don't take the negative energy. If the negative energy is going to be taken over there, don't follow it. Because all you're going to do is just flipping like a fire. You're going to keep it going. And it's hard. It's not thing. And I'll fall at fault at times. But the majority of the time, man, I really just don't care about other people's opinions. I don't care what they think of me. At the end of the day, man, if I'm ticking those boxes for my goals that I've set up at the day, and I'm meticulous, man, on my start of my day, then that's when I want to get through. That's all that matters. 10-year goal, make sure my family are looked after, be good, be genuine, be good to people, you know, and just don't give negative energy when you don't have to.
I'm getting goosebumps, man. Like, for real, because all this stuff we know about, but just hearing that, you know, because you see, you know, I follow those pages on Instagram, you know, the inspirational quotes and all that, and you see them, and you know, you say, oh, that's really good, you know, but you're living them out, and then you're acting them out, or putting them into place, or putting them into action, and that's the cool thing. You know, I've learned so much, especially about the financial side of things. So that's, yeah, man, that's
Planning is one thing that, man, if I was to share one thing with you, it was just to plan your day.
So what? So
Okay.
so what do you mean plan? Like when you wake up, do you do the usual brush your teeth and that, and then just right in, or you've already got you set out your day already, or
Yeah, to start my day, I've always got to do my planning because, man, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It's and I'm quite meticulous when it comes to that because that's my structure for the day. When I look at it and close up for the day, that's what's going to tell me how my productivity is. And the first thing that I do when I get to the desk is throw in some inspirational music, YouTube, and I just play something. Today was about this governor, and you've probably seen on YouTube about giving a speech, and it was about the principles of the Navy. He was a Navy commander, and it was just some of the principles around that. So
is
you
this the
listen to
one
that on
when you wake
YouTube.
up, fold your do
Yeah,
your bed?
yeah. You tick your box.
Yeah.
Why do they do that? Because I thought, why would you set the bed? Set the bed. Why would you set the bed? One thing, because at the end of the day, they've started off with an achievement, and you're like, shucks, So it's just listening to those things. Eric Thomas, some music. Like I just like to try and change it up. And one of the things that I'll start off with is five things of gratitude. So I have to do 5 things of gratitude. What I'm happy for, This morning was I get to wake up next to my beautiful wife, my kids. I have a roof over my head. I have food. I have God on my side. And I have income. And those are just things that I can crystallize straight away. They're not going to be influenced by things. They're just things I just need to be grateful for, of what I have in front of me. And then I do an affirmation, and that affirmation is basically about me, and I think today was you get shit done. And that's just doesn't matter how hard it gets, because in finance you're juggling things, man, all the time. And when you're at a level that you're good at what you do, your phone just doesn't stop ringing, man. And it's just like, And then I have a theme, and essentially that theme is, what's the theme? And it generally starts from the day of the week, in terms of, and this week it's don't delay deals, triple D. So any deals that come in, you just can't delay them, get them out, because they compound. And then I go into a must-do list. But that must-do list, generally, is what you can realistically achieve. There's no point writing down 200 things when you're not going to achieve them in 24 hours. That's just, you've got to be realistic. And also, if you set down 200 things and you only achieve one, your psychology is going to be like, oh man, I didn't really achieve a lot. So I try and keep down 5 or 6 things that I do that I know that I can realistically achieve throughout the day. And then I do a 1-minute meditation. And that's once I've done that, I've got that, cool. Because then I've just done my list and I'm like, far out, it's on. 1-minute meditation, because I just don't have the time. And then I do a prayer. And then I'm into my day. And normally about 7 o'clock I will then start getting the kids up, doing lunches for the 2 youngest, getting them up, getting them dressed, getting them out of the bed. 2 older ones are pretty self-dependent, so, and then we're getting them up as much as we can do and get them out the door at about 8:15, and then I do the school run. So drop my oldest boy at Liston, oldest girl at St. Dobbs.
You Liston College.
And then my 2 youngest ones at Western Heights. And then I'm back home, and then normally it's around 20 to 8. And then try and tidy up as much as I can. Because I don't like, if I'm making a coffee, I don't want to walk back into the kitchen, it's dirty.
Yeah.
Plus my wife will come back and like, hey, because I know once I'm into the day, man, that's it, it's over, so
Yeah.
it's just the day. And then that's it. So by about 9 o'clock, yeah, man, I've ready to hit the day. So I try and, my wife's going to work, I try and get up around 5 o'clock, get her out the door. And so 5:30 I'm sitting at the desk, planning the day.
Oh, so your wife, so you're doing all that by yourself. I thought your wife was still at home when you were waking up the kids and doing all.
No.
She's
So my
already
wife-
gone for the day.
Yeah, or she
right.
works from home.
Yeah.
So she works from home Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, yeah, and then in the city Wednesday, Thursday. So she so I do that in the morning, but she'll kind of set up everything, for the kids, give them all their reminders of what they need to do, and then when she sort of gets back in the afternoon, then she does the afternoon shift. essentially that, and I'm just back on working on that. So she'll do dinner and all that, and then so this is why the planning becomes quite important, because with all the activity there,
We got 4 kids.
yeah. So you just got to get back, and then that's your must-do list, and that's the focus, man. It's just the must-do list. Then those are your focus, and a lot of the, I suppose, external noise that comes in that can upset the focus. You just keep coming back to that, and then at the end of the day, man, before you close up shop, let's have a look. And I normally do a little 0 if it's, oh yeah, cool, I've made something on that, or done something on that action, and then it gets a tick if I achieve that by the end of the day, and then it's on repeat the next day.
That requires you to be quite honest, though, way, because you can.
You have to be honest.
Kind of half done it, so I'm going to give you like a half sickle or half tick to you.
Oh, you definitely have to be honest, because the accountability ultimately is, you can be perceived and show on face value that you're doing this, this, and this. The reality is that, man, deep down. And if you're not being accountable, there's no point doing that. It's no point actually going through and doing all that, because if you're not going to be accountable to yourself, you're wasting your time on that. And that's kind of my typical day, man.
You mentioned before you've been real busy this way to put the DJing on the shelf for a bit. With the COVID lockdowns and all that, like how much obviously hasn't changed anything in your business? Like
financial services work right through. So I've just been working as normal. I suppose the biggest thing out of that, so in our industry, nothing changed. Just work right through.
And was working from home the big change? Or were you working from home anyway?
No, working from home was a massive adjustment, because I thought, sweet, that was easy. But when you got the kids at home, then you've got because at work, that's it. You've got work. You don't have the kids. There's nothing to influence you there. But when you're at home, man, I'm hungry. Kids fighting. It's just like, what? Talking on the phone. I'm like, hey, I'm on the phone.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and it got to a level that it was just like, far out. This is not working. Productivity. I'm looking at my to-do list. I'm like, man, I'm not getting through this. Yeah. So it was just like, how do I? And I got to a realization, how do I, rather than get upset about it, how do I manage the day?
Yeah.
Which then actually went, you can't do a 9 to 5. You can't do an 8 to 5, 7 to 5. You have to work around the day.
Yep.
So that's how it changed around the psychology and said, okay, let's implement more. I said, well, I'm going to implement the thing that works within that. So when I had those disruptions, I expected them. And I just worked around them, rather than saying, hang on, I need to notify that I've got to do my work. Well, no. It meant I had to work longer, but you'd find that those gaps in the morning, particularly for breakfast and things like that, then you do the breakfast and you come back out. And it helped with the wife being at home too, so we just kind of sort of worked around that. But it wasn't easy. And that kind of then went on to the position that I am now. It's just like, well, hang on, actually I can work from home.
Yeah.
I've got set up, and that's it. The only time I go into the office to sort of show faces on a Wednesday. The rest of it is just spend at home, and I choose my day.
One thing I learned about the COVID lockdown was that, like, working 9 to 5. Like, everyone had to work from home if you still had your job. If you had an office job, you could work from home. And then I think companies realized that, well, hang on a minute, we can actually work from home, and we're actually saving money.
Yeah. Well, the one of the things that I had is a client of mine, his IT company shut up shop. So they gave away their lease of their building, or finished their lease, didn't renew it. And then what they've done is they've done hot desks. So what they've done is that basically everyone operates from home now. So, and if they need to see a client, then they'll come into that office, which is, if you're leasing a building at 100 grand, you're now paying 20 grand. So your overheads are immediately reduced. And it makes sense, because the reality is that productivity from working at home is doubled. So from that perspective, being able to do that, and that's to do with the psychology, being able to then choose the day, that's powerful, man. That's absolutely powerful.
And I found myself working more than 8 hours in a day, because you can, if you're bored or if you remembered something, you can do it like after. Yeah. You can do it after dinner. Yeah. Or if there's nothing on TV, you want to watch, you do some work, and you find yourself working another 2 hours. Yeah. Just like that sort of thing.
Well, that's exactly it. Like the productivity side of things is the opportunities are there. Yeah. To be able to do that. And for me, I get the opportunity done. I get paid for it. And it's like, man, so I'm just like, hey. But there's another challenge that was there, is being able to then balance working from home, is to balance that time and family time. because that's hard. That's hard. I met up with a guy a couple of weeks ago, very educated guy, and he talked to me about trying to operate within a 4-day week and have a 3-day weekend. I said, how does that work, man? What do you mean? He says, he sort of talked to me about some of the things that he said. He said, this is what you got to look at doing, man. So what they're doing is that while you do those longer days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you then create that extra day to say, okay, and your weekend then becomes a 3-day weekend. So you're not working the Fridays, and then you got the Saturday and Sunday. So the time that you're investing on those extra days, doing those extra hours on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're getting them back on the Friday, rather than doing the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's something that I've sort of taken on board. I haven't got there yet, but that's kind of one of the aims, is to be able to then create that 4-day working week.
I sort of changed my hours at work too, but this was before the COVID thing. So in order to beat traffic in the morning, I told my boss I'm going to work this time, 6:30 to 3:30.
Yeah.
Because it's normally 9 to 5. So I beat traffic both ways.
Yeah.
And I realized that coming home at 3:30, get home before the traffic, I got heaps of time in the afternoon. And felt really good. Since then, I haven't really been doing that anymore. I've been going to work later, but I find the days have been longer, and I'm not used to it anymore because I'm used to the early shift.
Well,
so to speak.
That's one of the things that I probably don't miss anymore is the traffic and having the option of working from home, and that's probably the biggest thing is that if I wanted to go in the office, you can, or you get to choose. And traffic is, man, I hated staying in traffic, because when I looked at it, and I used to catch a train into Newmarket, that's an hour there or 50 minutes, and 50 minutes back, man, that's 2 hours a day, that's 10 hours a week. Man, I could be doing that spending that more productively doing something else. And that was always something that I was just like, man, why is that? Now that 10 hours, that's a working week for the month. So I'm just like, man, and that's my thing. My thing is thinking, man, I can use that productive. I can do it. Okay. And now I get to do that. I don't, so there's no excuses. I've got that. So it's a matter of saying, well, hey, you've got what you want. Now make it work. And it's interesting because God works, man, he says he works in mysterious ways, man. And you think about those things, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I asked for
Yeah.
And it happens. It's so, man, all praise to the man upstairs, man.
But even with people that have to work they have to work, to pay the bills and stuff. Like a lot of people hate their jobs, and I'm sure productivity goes down after 3 o'clock, every day. So that 9 to 5 concept starts to feel like, it's not really.
You're probably right. I think it's
like old type of thing. It's not. And I thought about also like technology is advancing now every year. So shouldn't it be more efficient now? Shouldn't it be easier to, with the advancement of technology every year, it should be more efficient now for companies to get their productivity up. So when does it end? It's never going to end. Like if back in like 1970, it took a day to make 10 t-shirts, right? Now in 2020, it takes 1 minute to take 10 t-shirts. So now, shouldn't that day we used to work in 1970 be like, oh, there's like a half an hour job and go home now? Now we can make 1,000 t-shirts in one whole day. So you got to stay there, make 1,000 t-shirts. So when it's going to end?
Yeah.
When it's going to be 2,000 t-shirts, 1 million t-shirts, 5 million t-shirts a day when technology advances. So, you know what I mean? We're still going to be working that 9 to 5.
I was watching a documentary. I can't remember what the documentary was about on Netflix, and the reason why I got attracted to it, because every time I'd sort of watch something, I'd watch a trailer on YouTube, because I was like, okay, I need to get buy-in. I need to have some buy-in into it before I can watch it, whether it's a movie, whether it's a doco, whatever that is. And this one particular thing is that they talked about exactly that. We get $1, we want $2. We get $2, we want $3. And I suppose productivity is ultimately the aim, some level of efficiency to be able to give us the biggest amount of return with the least output. Whether it's mentally, physically, financially, whatever that is. And ultimately, these were two executives that basically just lived off the bare means. And I suppose from a business perspective, people get into business for whatever reasons, but ultimately it's one of those will be money, and I suppose businesses will continue to chase that concept or chase that dream. But yeah, where does it end? For that, and as a part of that, technology will allow us to then achieve that. On that, where it ends, oh, man, I couldn't tell you, but
I guess that's capitalism.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. But I suppose when we talk about those sorts of things, going back to production, technology is also, whilst it's also a tool that allows us to be a lot more efficient, it's also a massive distraction. When you look at the times that you're spending on it,
social media and all that.
and particularly relationships. When you think about the amount of time that you spend on that, and kids, it's kind of the new drug. Their kids, it's the amount of time that they do spend on it, the investment that they have on it, and their reliance on technology, man, it's scary, because that tablet, that phone is kind of their world. Whereas when we were growing up, man, a rugby ball, a basketball, staying out at night, wiring video games, down video update, where those are the things there, and technology is a very scary tool that allows control, and it starts to really limit some of the values that I go against, which is, man, don't think like the norm, think like yourself, and let that be the norm. On that. But yeah, I mean, technology is great, but it can also, particularly in terms of productivity, it can probably have a reversal effect.
Yeah.
Be non-productive, just simply because of social media, access to emails, and also the little triggers that keep pulling you back to a phone. Ding! Oh, you feel you need to check that text message, you need to check that email. Why?
If you watch that Social Dilemma documentary on Netflix, it's like it's all planned. It's supposed to be doing that to us. But I think when it comes to internet and social media, like over the years, like it's just been there, and as humans, we're just going with the flow, and we don't know we didn't know back in the days really what the consequences will be, and we're just living it out.
It's an exciting concept. You get up there, you're able to connect, particularly in terms of overseas family, friends you haven't seen. But then COVID was a good reminder. We had video phone calls, which we would have not necessarily probably engaged in those phone calls because we had the restrictions there.
I bet you the name Zoom call didn't register in anyone's before COVID,
And that's the nature of technology, because it's like, rather than go and visit, phone, I'm just sending you a text. Sweet. And it's like, oh man, that face-to-face interaction, those values, those friendships that we would have started through when we were younger, all those sorts of things. The boys that I hang out with now, that we stay with, like Ben, my older brother Jace, Rich, Troy, all the boys that we've got now, those friendships have been cemented through interaction. Those experiences where, all right, man, shucks, we've got some money, or you're going to get into a fight. All right, yeah, that's us, and you think, oh yeah, man. Whereas none of that now. Our kids these days are just so distant from that, which is really scary, because a phone, man, that's not going to make your food. Yeah. That's not going to establish those relationships. In fact, it's probably done the reversal.
Well, technically, Uber Eats can make your food for you.
If you've got the money, yeah. But it's just, it's sad, because I look at it with technology, and it's very hard. We used to have in our house no technology Tuesdays, and it was just like, well, why do we have to do this? Why do we do that? And we've kind of reverted back to technology, simply because I've sort of just been focused on this, and it's like, yeah. But it was awesome, because you'd have those interactions. They didn't like it. It was very adverse. It was very novel. But it's needed. It's needed.
And because we had no technology every day back in the 90s.
It's funny. Like, it's in a couple of years' time, because of all these kids, all the interactions are either through talking to their mates on Fortnite, or that's an awesome example that you use, because that was how we, going to pick up the boys on, you go to your mate's house, so let's go do this, let's go hang out, and you forge those friendships, eh? And these kids now, I wonder if they're going to be able to form lasting friendships.
Well, that's the risk.
Because you're only, most of the time, let's say 80% of the time they're interacting is either through a video call,
Text.
or they're talking to them on the headphones while they're playing a game, or text and that. You know what I mean? So but before, because we got the only forms of communication we had were you'd have to pick up the phone, you dial a number, and you just hope that
If you had a phone.
exactly, yeah, or hope that someone was there. Go, is Aaron there? Oh, Aaron went out, yeah. And go, oh man, damn it, I missed him, man. And then you have to figure out, where can he be? Where are the boys? And so you got to start ringing around and that kind of stuff you remember. Like we were talking about memories, memories that we forged from playing together, memories that we forged because we spent time together. We could talk about a video call. Remember that video call we had? I'm like, I've had about 1 million last couple of, so can you pinpoint that, Dave? Those aren't actual, real, palpable, they're not memories that we can really forge or remember because they were us looking at a screen we look at a screen to watch TV, or watch Netflix and that, and then it's going to be scary, is it?
It's something that, like, God's given us right in front of our eyes. He calls it the gift, and it's about being, or the present. The difference that you've got on technology is you're not physically present. Whereas with those friendships that we have, man, we were in there. Because we're like, man, how are we going to catch a bus here, man? How are we going to get home from town?
Yeah, exactly
how are we
right.
going to get something to eat at Macca's? What do you got, $3? Like, we're present. We're actually in there, and we know, and that goes there. Whereas with a phone, you can, I get a text, boom, that goes down. You can't be present there. And
You can't. It's like you remember the journey there to the meeting place. You remember the
So you become
interactions.
detached from it because
walking
Yeah,
through
to
the
everything is that one little thing. But you remember walking through the alleyway.
I was just going to say the alleyway.
Yeah,
I was just
yeah.
going to say walking through the alleyway because I remember, what's that one up from, was it from Waitakere? Come across the road and then you go back by the police station. Just trying to think where that is. And that was scary, man, at night.
Yeah,
And that was
yeah.
So I was just going to say, and I suppose that's the key difference is that you're not present there. And if you're present, then I suppose that there's a different
There's a whole lot of
experience
different experience
that you've got, which you can then say, hey man, I remember doing that. Whereas this, I sent that text, oh yeah. And I suppose interactions are, with the what they call the emojis and things like that. That's oh hey, how you going? Whereas before it's just like, man, Dorian, man, come sleep at my place or something, or hey man, I've got some food for that. And I think that's the problem now is that the distraction around that. God gave us that thing to say, okay, this is the present, man. This is the present I'm giving you. It's the gift that I'm going to give you. It's the present right here, right now. And technology just it takes you away from that.
It's funny how you're saying like the usage of emojis. Like if you send a text, and you talked about being lost in translation, you can send a text and you put an emoji at the end, like go, oh man, that sounds really good. Put a little smiley face, but really, you're like, people be rolling their eyes. I feel sorry for kids these days because if that's the only form, you can't really get a gauge. How are you supposed to read people? We've read people through interaction. We read people like you could tell by when someone's not happy with you, but if you get a text of that, you don't really get a gauge. So the kids are missing out. I don't know if they are, but I mean, you learn how to judge people by the way you're brought up. By meeting people, seeing their face or how their voice or how they speak to you, and that. So, are kids getting lost in that because of technology?
Absolutely, man. I think, and I see it with my kids, and it's trying to something that we try and educate them. Me and my wife try and educate them around that. I'm kind of the, hey, let's do it this way, But I view life differently. Whereas my wife she's probably more empathetic, more sympathetic. Hey, kids, all the other kids are doing that, and there's no right or wrong. But I suppose they are, like from my point of view, yeah, kids are getting distracted away from that. And the brutal reality is that when you get into life, your phone's not going to be, the answer. You can't.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just had a car crash. Okay, can I download an app to fix that car? I'll take a screenshot, and it's, oh no, the car's, it's those sorts of things which I'm trying to prepare our kids for that. Not with there is some resistance that we get. I mean, my wife will clash on certain things, but when they turn 18 and they go into the real world, I want them to actually be able to stand up on their 2 feet. As I tell my kids all the, and I've got a 9-year-old through to a 17-year-old. I tell them, me and mum are going to be here. We ain't going to be here to solve everything. We ain't going to be here for you to cry on. You 4 kids, get this bond together, get it going, get it strong. Start showing some independence, because the world's just going to smash you in the face, and you need to be prepared. And whilst this phone at the moment is kind of your reality, it's not going to help you in real life. Unless, you got mum and dad's phone number. Oh, can I help with it? But yeah, technology's it's a crazy tool, man.
It would be a crazy test, like if you said to your, like a kid, I remember back in the days, I knew everyone's phone number, like all the boys, oh yeah, this is John's number, that's close. If you gave the kid a test, like, okay, what are the name, at least 3 now, like your home number, and then 4 other people that you'd really need to get a hold of. I wonder how many kids would pass, because there's that reliance on, you just scroll up and you push that button, because you don't need to technically remember the number anymore, you know what I mean?
Well, this is the device. The device was, it's created to be user-friendly.
Yeah.
So your convenience, I need to look up a number. Oh, no, I don't. It's stored.
Yeah.
Just needs to push a name. Yeah. So
we are Siri.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's a lot of good things about technology,
Of
like
course,
in
of
terms
course.
of where it is. But I probably find that there's a lot more that negativity and a lot of more things against technology than for it, personally. And particularly for the kids side of things, we're at a stage we can manage, because we've gone and had the best of both worlds. And our generations, we're perfect, because we're in that stage where it's, excuse me, transitioned. And we've seen that transition. So we've kind of had the experience of this and going, man, we had a rugby ball, 20 on 20, in a Pars Park, and then it's just like dark, all right, man, let's start walking home. It was like, now it's technology. So we kind of get the best of both worlds. And I suppose kids in that generation won't understand that sort of thing, because this is their generation. The millennials, I suppose, is the technology, and their thinking's different. Their thinking's different. But as a parent, as an auntie, an uncle, grandparent, a cousin, we do have a responsibility that we can make a change, particularly in terms of the way that they think. So I think, when we talk about, oh no, that's just the way the kids do it. Well, yeah, absolutely. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the way that we do it. So we have to crawl before we walk. So change can be big. If everyone plays their part.
So no technology Tuesday coming back in a couple of weeks time,
Don't
or?
worry. I think it will be, in terms of that. Because the other thing too, the sad thing is that also in terms of interaction, at a sibling level. One in the room. Hey, what are you doing?
Oh yeah.
So, oh man.
But I found that too. I remember my brother was in the room and I texted him. And I usually I'd get up here and go knock on that, and I remember sitting there and I was like, that is probably the laziest thing I've ever done. I'll text someone that's in the room over.
Yeah.
And I could have just stood up, went knocked on the door, asked them a question, that's what I can.
I tell my kids, man, don't text your mum.
Oh wait.
You're upstairs, come down.
Yeah.
Show some respect for your mother, man. She does everything for you. Come downstairs, ask her. So like that. So they know not to text me, because they're just like, you're texting me and you're upstairs.
Yeah. They're
You're wasting your time.
I wonder if we're like, we have our experience, like you said, we have experience before the internet. And our kids are living in a different world now when they grow up. I wonder if that world will be so different that we can't even recognize it when we're like 90 years old, and we'll probably realize, oh, okay, the world is different.
I think it definitely will be. I think that's the evolution of technology, and I suppose the creators of technology that, talk about when will it end. I suppose it's probably the same philosophy that they have. They want to create that human, that automated human, you know, which is probably, you know, I heard that, you know, we're going to be the creators of our own demise, our own humanly demise, you know, so that's where we're going through, you know, having clones, having all these automated beings to some extent on the market at the moment. It's crazy, and I think, yeah, the evolution of technology will be at a stage that we won't know. I mean, I'm at times thinking, oh man, what's that app?
Yeah.
You know, now that's probably through sheer laziness, because for me, I'm not going to invest my time on an app and understand that. I'll do it on somewhere else. But as the technology evolves and the requirements evolve, then yeah, I suppose we're probably going to find that, man, technology is going to be quite foreign.
I guess the real scary thing is as technology evolves with automation and that, like, you think of how many jobs are going to go around the world. Like, you know, even when it's probably far from now, but even when you think of cars that drive by themselves,
Yeah.
like, we don't have to drive anymore. Like, where's all those driving jobs going to go? Courier drivers or, you know, anything.
And that's it. You know, the industry is going to create that. That's the aim. Again, about sort of what's the most efficient way to increase productivity, and that is one of the ways through that, creating systems, technology to be able to then cater for that, which you can then take out the human resource or the expense there, and then spend it on here. So the expense that you get here can't replace 10 people. So your overhead gets reduced. So that sort of thing, it makes sense financially. But yeah, it impacts the other side of it. There's the human side of it and the income.
Because then the problem will be, what do you do with all these people? You know?
Well, naturally people will just say, okay, where's the next job? Where do I go?
Yeah.
You know, where do I go to and what do I do? And if that happens, and it happens quickly, then people are going to be out of jobs, and you know, ultimately it's going to be probably come down to an increase in crime. It's going to be, well, hang on, man, if I can't generate it through here, and we haven't got the social welfare system to accommodate that, then it's going to be very limited money. And if you've got kids, family, wife, mum, dad, brother, sister that you're looking after, you know, you're going to be looking at ways to be able to get some money somehow. And unfortunately, you know, that could mean a life of crime, or at least dipping your toes in there.
You know, with your business and stuff, like with COVID happening, and talked about technology moving up, how's that, like, has any new innovations come out of your experience with your job, like new things, like you've thought about new opportunities?
On me that I've thought about
Yeah.
opportunities. No, I mean I've kind of I've always sort of worked on the principle, don't reinvent the wheel. You know, t-shirts have been great in clothing. I've always had a passion for that, to be able to then do designs and things like that. My brokering side, again, that's just a natural fit. Probably hasn't been anything. There's always been ideas that I've always had. And we talk about Uber. I thought about that when probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I thought about that, and I thought, because when I was catching cabs from town, and phones, fixed, you know, when you had the $20 cards, 15, 20 years ago, you had the prepaid cards.
Yeah.
And I thought, fuck, the uncertainty about catching a taxi, because you wouldn't know, $60-$80 to get from town back out west. And it was like, man, what if I did a fixed price on that for a cab? Because people were always, you know, everyone was getting phones then, cell phones. And it was like, what if I got a fleet of cabs, did that, and had fixed price? My competition would be that, but they'd have certainty. Same model as phones, certainty and $20 on those $20 prepaid. Great, yeah. But I didn't have the working capital to be able to do that. Also, that hire hubby, I had an idea around it. I thought to myself, man, I've got friends that are in the trading industry. Why don't I get them together? And then what we do is resource it. So we go, okay, you're good at plumbing, you're good at building. Why don't we resource you between us to say, okay, let's go out there. If we're doing a build, you do the build, you do the plumbing, you do electrical work. I'll go and sell it up. You know, but didn't have the working capital. to be able to then launch that. So that was, so ideas always ticking
Yeah.
in the head to sort of think, okay, what's something, what's a niche in the market? I'm always looking for a gap in the market. Where's the gap in the market that I can plug?
We always thinking about business, like even when you're young or growing up, or was there something come out of what you did, working at a bank and insurance and?
I knew, I kind of knew I was kind of different. My thinking was a little bit different, I just knew I just had to be successful in some way, whether that's being a dad or something, but probably not when I was young. I was probably trying to deal with, I suppose it was probably jealousy of seeing other kids having what they want, and that was kind of, I was probably thinking, that was kind of the focus. Really, it was just trying to do well on that. But the ideas around business probably started when I got into the banking side, because then you started to see customers that were having businesses doing these things, and then I thought, wow, hey, that's something I want to look into. And that was kind of, from there it was just like, hey, but then you get distracted because you get the job. I'll just jump in there, and you get comfortable with the income. Then it just got to a stage where I'm just like, you know what, flipping out, I'm going to think. And that's what started the DJing side. And I thought, man, I'm going to jump into this, and went out there and said, hey, let's go. Man, went out there and didn't know what to do with the accounting side of things, flipping invoicing, and it was just like, it was all a shambles. But that was kind of the catalyst. So I've always something that I've wanted to do, but given the comfort of being in finance, having income, having fixed income, there was always that insecurity about leaving it. But then I just come to the conclusion, man, if I don't do this now, in 10 years time, 20 years time, 30 years time, I'm going to be sitting in the same seat, and I'm going to be looking back, wish I did that. So I just said, man, all right, that's it, let's go. Hit with a lot of reservation from my wife, who just basically looks out to make sure everything's fine. And when you go from a fixed income to commission based, it can be scary. And but got her support, and everyone's on board, and I'm definitely not looking back on that. So that was probably the first time that I sort of started thinking about businesses and looking at people on how they created wealth through a business vehicle.
What's your advice for people that want to quit their job and go on their own full time?
Have cash resources, because that's ultimately the scariest thing. Is that people, when you do it, make sure you got the comfort of cash resource at least for 12 months. So you've got your fallback option, because your focus needs to be on your business and driving that business. It can't be focusing on I'm trying to make ends meet. Because that starts to distort everything, because you're like, you're trying to focus on getting the money in just to cover the bills, when the focus should be creating the business to be able to then create the income on there. And when you've got cash resources sitting in there while you're doing that and start just getting your business off the ground, then the psychology is, cool, I've got money I can rely on to cover the bills for the next 12 months. My focus just has to be flipping kicking ass and getting my business off the ground, and go for it. So the advice is probably cash resources. 2 is have a plan. Make sure you have a plan. There's no point waking up and going, man, I've got an epiphany. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. Sorry, man, I'm out. And you put the phone down and go, what am I going to do? So have a plan is probably a thing. It's another thing that I'd say. Don't reinvent the wheel. If you're jumping into a business and you've worked in shoes and now you want to go into building, have a good think about that. So don't reinvent the wheel. And probably the biggest thing is those all big, is make sure you've got the support, from the people that matter most, because often, they can be your biggest critic on things, and when you're trying to sort of see the bigger picture, for whatever reasons, it's hard, when you're trying to just do well, but having those challenges in there. So you just make sure the people that you've got your loved ones, make sure they're there to support you and see the bigger picture and can support you in whatever way they can.
Man, this is like, we always talk about when we have guests on, and we always go away that we've learned something, and we always have we always say, oh man, because after this we'll turn the mics off, we'll finish eating the sushi and all that kind of stuff, and we're, man, thank you, so we've learned so much, and this is one of those that I'm honestly gonna re-listen to this again and try and pick out all the little gems that you had in there, because I don't know if you might have to put yourself out there as New Zealand's version of Eric Thomas too, because although you're not doing any rapping or the way with the gusto, the messages that you have and the guidance and the advice that you can offer, bro, it's more than just the business side, it's life, just the way to approach life. So man, thank you so much, Horse, man. It's been a long way since that, what was that, 1996, man? Jeez.
No, thank you for coming, man. It's like, and this is exactly why we do this podcast.
That's it. That's hard
to talk to our people, man, like all walks of life. Because, man, as I was right, like, man, if I go through our catalogue of guests we've had, there's always something everyone has taught us, and everyone has different views. Everyone has different point of view of it, but just all the different lessons that everyone says that shares with us, and I know people that listen to our podcast, they're enjoying it too, like they're learning something too. So I think that's the biggest thing for us.
Oh no, I think it's a great platform. I don't go out there publicly. I don't go to a lot of things publicly. I don't sort of like putting myself out there. But with this opportunity, it's our generation, it's our people, and seeing the guests on there, it's great, because often I suppose through these experiences, through these discussions, there's a lot of value that people can take out of them. And I'm probably publicly adverse, to be on the internet and things like that. I don't like sort of getting my profile out there. But with this opportunity, man, it's been great, and it's a great platform to have those discussions. And for our people, it's a matter of getting those, getting that motivation, sharing some of those discussions, getting the tools out of there. And I think people need to be thankful that there is a platform like yours, in your podcast, to be able to have those discussions, because we do add value. People add value across all walks of life on that. So man, it's been great to sort of share some of my journey, some of my things that I have through life, and hopefully that someone or some person at some time can share that. So it's been great, man, to have a chat.
But bro, this isn't going to be your only one and only appearance, man. I'm telling the truth. We're going to get you in as many times as we can, because I know there's so much more on you, and there's we haven't even touched on. That's just a little thing that we've touched on with your journey, and that. So I'm excited, and I'm pretty sure that people listening to this podcast are going to be inspired too, because I'm pretty sure we all want to retire pretty soon. So if we can get someone pointing us in that direction, or helping us get that, getting our sail up and putting some wind in there, why not be another Uso,
And that's one of the things, like everything that we talk about today, in terms of that, in terms of business and that. That's what I do. I do the brokering side, and if people are out there that there's a lot of people out there that want to test me, then yeah, by all means, it's something there. But it's also an opportunity to talk. You guys will have my number. If you want to sort of share that, then yeah, it's a good opportunity to actually share those out. And yeah, I look forward to the next one, to be able to then share ideas collectively, that allow us to then maybe just think about things a little bit differently, challenge the social, the social norm, I suppose. and create some tools that help us advance in all walks of life. I win, you win. It's that mentality. It's a little bit cliche, but that's the reality. And I've got a certain skill set that I can offer, and that's open to help people on that, just to talk on any things when it comes to property finance, or some of the things that I have. So I appreciate the opportunity.
See those fireworks going off in the background? That's to commemorate all the advice that you and the gems that you've been dropping there. All these people be standing outside, and that's how we're going to finish it off like that. But actually, before we go, how can people get a hold of you on what platforms? Also?
Yeah, so if you jump on Luminate Financial Group, just Google that, 11A McColl Street in Newmarket. So all my contact details are on there, and email, phone. Give me a call, give me an email. I know people like to sort of send emails, particularly when it comes to finding, here's my scenario, things like that. But to be honest, the best way is actually to call and run the scenarios through. So yeah, that's probably the best way to sort of get in contact with me.
Last question, Queensland or New South?
Man, Queensland all day.
Yes, sir. That's why you're wise. You've made two great decisions tonight. Saying that and coming on this podcast.
That's why you only heard 2 firecrackers outside. Two Queenslanders.
Yeah, because there's fireworks
too.
There's fireworks happening in Adelaide later on.
Now, the only reason, I mean, apart from Queensland being the team that I've always followed, but also, it's, Queensland's got NZ in there, so.
Oh. No, that must be why we're so.
Okay, I'm gonna
a
cut this
lot
out. I'm
of
turning
there's
this
a lot
off
of Queensland supporters from New Zealand. There's New South Wales guys. You know why? Because they like those old criminals that came from England.
Yeah, okay, guys, but
Thank you.